What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Court Cowls, issue number 31. Yeah. 31 podcasts, man. That's crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
31. That's older than some people. So,
older than a couple of the people that are members of the court.
True story. Older than most of them, right? Some of them?
I think so.
I don't know. It's older than people. So,
older than Mike. That's the only one I'm confident in. I think August is.
I think Matt's
20s?
only 30, and I think August is under 30. I should know that. He's my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Anyways, hey, so kind of special episode this time. It's just me and my man
Cody.
Yep. So we're flying not solo, but
Tag team.
Tag team. Yeah, tag team. I like it.
It's the tag division.
It is the hottest tag team in the world right now. Cody and Chris, keeping it real. So I
know. We said the next one was going to be our next one is going to be Stephen King.
Yep.
But this is just kind of an impromptu one.
Yeah, we were just hanging out, playing some Shadow of War, talking about some cool stuff, and me and Cody decided that we felt like talking, and we thought, why not just record it? We're going to talk anyways, so why not make other people listen to it?
Yeah.
So, but before we get into all things great, court is in session.
Oh yeah, court is in. Oh, well, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about some comics.
Yeah.
And I am head over heels in love with what DC is doing right now. And I know the two people that listen to this just rolled their eyes because Chris liked DC. What?
Yeah. If you haven't figured it out, it's a very DC heavy show. Aside from Matt. Matt kind of, I think he digs DC, but not as much as.
I think his wife kind of pulls him a little more towards the Marvel side of things, and he's a big Daredevil guy. Which Daredevil's great, don't get me wrong. And
hey, if you're reading a comic, that's awesome.
I don't care what you're reading. I don't care if you're reading Archie and, Veronica, whatever. Or Betty and Veronica, or Archie and Jughead. Look, just read a comic. Comics are fantastic.
Yeah. Have you watched any Riverdale?
I've seen like an episode of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's actually pretty dang good, I think.
It's different.
Yeah.
Not bad different, just different.
It's just Pretty Little Liars with Moose in it, but
there you go.
But yeah.
I'm going to take your word for it.
But it's pretty cool.
Pretty Little Liars, but
my sister watches it, so I had to.
Yeah, sure.
She really does.
Yeah, my wife watches Total Divas. Not me, her. So man, I thought we would just talk some comics. Some big DC stuff going on. We'll try to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but spoiler alert, we will talk some spoilers. We'll just try not to give away every little detail, but if you're not caught up pretty much all the way back to the button, then this is your spoiler warning. So
right. Well, there's hasn't been any like really big spoilers for the button, except for finding out who Mr. Oz was.
Well, and I am not even sure that is everything. Right. So, and that really didn't come out of the button. That just kind of came out of Superman, actually, Action Comics. So, so if you're not caught up on it, I recommend pausing this, reading, getting caught up on Action, then coming back and hitting play because you left us pulled up on your computer or phone or whatever. So Mr. Oz would appear to be Jor-El, Superman's father. Maybe a rather battered and beat up Jor-El. Definitely been through some stuff.
Real quick, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So I got to say, at that point, court is in session.
Boom.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. All right. So back to where we were. Yes. Jor-El, maybe Mr. Oz. Is probably Mr. Oz. Maybe.
As I open my can of beverage.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's a Diet Pepsi for those wondering.
Oh, I was going to say it's a tasty beverage of whoever wants to pay me.
Oh, fair enough. It's not Diet Pepsi. It's the sponsor's beverage of choice.
Yes.
And it's the most delicious beverage ever. So yeah, just talking DC Comics, man. What's been going on? Ever since Rebirth started, there's been this big mystery of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And
the fact that it's that basically the story of the universe right now is all the plot holes from New 52.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, the fact that they're just acting like all the little plot holes they left that, like, kind of confused me, and, like, stuff that we'd argue, maybe on, like, previous podcasts even, that we'd say, like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. This timeline doesn't really add up, you know, like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. At one point, it is suggested, they could have said it otherwise, but it is suggested that Batman, as of 0 year, had been Batman for about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but Robin had already come to be, or Dick Grayson, rather, had come to be Robin, and then to Nightwing. Red Robin was already out there, Red Hood was already out there, and Damian was already out there. So you're going to tell me that he had all those relationships in general, and with Clayface, Two-Face, Joker, and all of them within a span of 6 years?
Yeah.
You know, and it was stuff like that that didn't make sense to me. And then there'd be, like, different moments when, like, it is suggested that he's been around for longer than that, but he's been in his prime for 6 years.
Yeah.
But now with with Wally West coming back and saying that, like, we just lost 10 years of time and no one knows about it, like, and just using stuff like that as a backdrop and saying, like, someone stole our time.
Yeah.
Dude, it has been a romping good read.
It has been amazing, and I want to jump straight into the thing that interests me the most out of it.
Right.
Because you said Red Robin.
Yeah.
And Mr. Oz and this whole Rebirth thing. Kind of the Ballad of Tim Drake, what's been going on with him. Is anybody that knows me knows that it goes Batman at the top of my list, followed very closely behind is Tim Drake.
Yeah.
And honestly is Red Robin. I love the character, I love the series, I love the art, which obviously that can change, but I loved the take on this character, and, you know, this may speak to my age, but Tim Drake was my Robin, you know.
Yeah.
My parents, my grandparents, their Robin was Dick Grayson, because that's who it was. Nobody's Robin was really Jason Todd, because he lasted about 14 minutes, but, you know, when I was growing up, it was always Tim. Dick was always Nightwing.
Yeah.
But, so I don't know, I really resonate with Tim Drake as a character.
Yeah.
He's very different from Batman, but he's very Batman. And I've always found that incredibly interesting.
That's what I love about him, is he's basically Batman. He could be Batman today,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want the cowl.
Yeah.
You know, and I always loved that about him, that, like, Robin was kind of being, like, basically fashioned to become Batman one day, but he became Nightwing. Like, he didn't follow his own legacy. It's just that's how he evolved as a character. He didn't evolve into Batman. And, you know, but he is still the one that, like, and we brought this up on previous shows, that, like, he was the one that, like, if something happened to Batman, he was the one that would, like, keep up the presentation that Batman was still around. Even though, like, the close people, even, like, Gordon at one point was like, you're a little too slim. You're not him, are you?
Yeah.
You're the kid, aren't you? You know, and even Gordon, who doesn't know who's involved with whose level of involvement is with who.
Yeah.
You know, so he doesn't know it's Bruce Wayne, but he knows suddenly Batman got a little bit slimmer.
Yeah.
You know?
And
it's stuff like that. And then, you know, when sorry to cut you off, but with Tim Drake, you know, just like one of the issues of Teen Titans, like just going up to his principal and being like, hey, so all the stuff you're teaching is, or the teacher being like, you know, he's arguing with the teacher about, like, how history actually went down. And he's like, no, it didn't go down that way, it went down this way. And he's like, Tim, if you're going to keep disrupting my class. And he's like, well, if you're going to keep funneling money from the charity event that the school does, then I'm going to keep disrupting your class. So it's like, so, I mean, like, he's right there, like, he's playing a game all his own, and you are not playing at his level, so don't even try.
Yeah.
You know, and I always loved that about him.
Absolutely. And he was another one, like, Dick Grayson is the perfect example of a character that organically evolved over time. He started as Robin, he became Nightwing. I mean, he's been Nightwing now longer than he was Robin, as far as comics go. And it's kind of rare that it happens in comics.
Yeah.
I mean, comics are kind of timeless, but Dick Grayson is one of the few characters that that has grown, that has actually aged in comics and become a completely different character.
Yeah.
And to a smaller degree, Tim Drake was another one.
Mm.
He went from Robin to Red Robin. It didn't last as long, per se, but it was nice to see him kind of grow and, you know, have his own identity.
Right.
And then what I think was one of the biggest crimes of New 52 is how they just absolutely gutted his origin and everything, and just I hated it. It was my least favorite part of New 52, where
they couldn't figure him out.
well, he never really figured out who Batman was, but he did. But Batman kind of let him do it.
Yeah.
Even Tim Drake wasn't his real name. Like it was just like whoever he was. Like
it was a moniker. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost his witness protection name, because he stole money from Penguin to draw Batman out to meet him, and it all went bad, and basically him and his parents had to hide from the mob, and his parents didn't die, which was a hugely important part of his backstory with identity crisis and his dad being killed. Dude, that would make me cry every time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that scene in Identity Crisis made me a Tim Drake fan. Just that one big panel.
Yeah.
Is Batman and Robin orphans?
Yeah.
That, oh my god, and him like sitting there holding Robin as Robin holds his dead father. And he's got that look of, I don't know how you draw like such that emotion on it. It's a comic book, but you just see this like look of shock and horror.
Yeah. And
you see all the questions going through this cartoon character's mind. You just look at it like, what am I gonna do? Oh my god, this is over. This is different. And it just says, it doesn't say Batman and Robin for justice or for, the uncanny, duo or the dynamic duo or whatever. It just says orphans.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
and to that scene, and I'll jump back to what I was talking about, how Tim, as he's going in, like, he knows his father's in trouble, and, like, the conversation leading up, and Bruce trying to get anybody, Superman, Flash, anybody, getting somebody there to save him.
Yeah.
And he's going as quick as he can, and then as soon as Tim gets there, he's undressing, basically.
Yeah.
And because there's still, whatever it is, there's that part of him that knows that he can't give up his secret identity or compromise Batman's identity because of the greater good that it is. So he's basically...
He can't give in to the raw emotion of anything.
So even though, I mean, his whole world has just been shattered, he still has the mind, like the
wherewithal?
Yeah, to like just boom. And he just, takes off the costume, and he's just a kid. And so when the cops show up, he's just there, and it just...
Yeah.
One of the most powerful scenes in a comic book. But...
I forgot about that part. Like him just like... It's weird. You think, he's undressing him, and it just seems weird, But he's getting rid of the costume, so it doesn't tie back to him being Robin, So this kid can actually, like... And it's just kind of like you think he's just defending his secret identity. But no, he's giving Tim Drake his own identity, because if he was still in the Robin suit, then the big story wouldn't be this kid's, loss. It would be this kid's Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ties to Batman this way, And then he'd basically be on the news for a whole different reason. But him, like, getting rid of the costume and just letting him have it, just kind of, like, now he can be there for the funeral. Now he can mourn it, So
yeah.
Good stuff.
And New 52 kind of took that from us, and even went so far as to say that he was never Robin. He was always Red Robin. He didn't want to take the moniker of Robin because of the memory of Jason Todd, so he became Red Robin.
Yeah.
And it just... I mean, there were some good stories with Tim in the New 52, but they murdered his origin.
Mm-hmm.
But...
all the Teen Titans stuff was incredible.
Yeah, it was very good.
It
made him a different character almost. Yeah. Now that being said, Rebirth came about. They rebooted everything, and we got Tim back as Red Robin, wearing a much more Robin-esque costume, very much like his first appearance costume. Obviously tweaked a little bit for this day and age, and it had the double R symbol, but basically the story that goes on, you really don't think he's going to tie into anything Rebirth. It's just this paramilitary group trying to, do their thing in Gotham, Batman finding out about him, then wanting to turn him into their soldier, or basically the blueprint for their soldiers, and, you think Tim dies, in this very noble sacrifice, saves the city, saves all these people, but he doesn't die. Before he's obliterated by all these rockets, he's teleported away, and Mr. Oz has taken him off the board, telling him, you're too important, you're too smart to be left to your own devices. Right. I need you off the board so you don't get in my way. Yeah. And that was, gosh, please forgive me if I'm wrong, but that's been over a year now since he was taken off. It's been quite a while. Has it been over a year? It's been a long time. Let's just leave it.
Well, he's been back for a little bit now, and he's just going with that. Like that's all I've heard. Like since he's been back is like ever since I was swiped from the board.
Well, basically there are only 2 issues since he's come back. And it's so wonderful because his first appearance was the story A Lonely Place of Dying. Yeah. Well, his return is A Lonely Place of Living. And the first issue, we're getting a little bit of spoiler here, was him coming back. He's still with Mr. Oz. He's still trapped wherever Mr. Oz has taken him. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of a way to be like, hey, this is what we've done. This first issue is kind of him retelling his origin a little bit, and it's his origin. It's completely done away with the whole, New 52 origin, and it's back to the way it was, and it's so great. But you find out that he's, wherever he's trapped, obviously he's still incredibly smart, and he uses his intelligence and his computer skills to get himself out. But 2 important things happen in that comic. One, you find out that Mr. Oz is not in charge. Yeah. So even if that is Jor-El, that's not the man in charge. Yeah. And he was kind of at best just another prisoner, another pawn that's being used by whoever's in charge. Is it Ozymandias? Is it Dr. Manhattan? Is it freaking Clock King? Whoever it is, there's somebody else in charge here. And
it just keeps saying that this big guy, what I love about it right now is with the whole Rebirth thing, it keeps saying there's another, there's a hand behind everything, and we got to figure out whose hand that belongs to. Yeah. And then they find this like otherworldly, like all powerful guy like Jor-El, and then they basically show this guy, and they're like, oh, by the way, this isn't him. Yeah. Like you're like, it's something greater than that. Yeah. And then they show someone else, and it's, it's not them. It's something greater than that. It's just crazy how they keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's very interesting. And I know we're kind of leading to Doomsday Clock, and there have been some things said about it, shown about it at Comic-Con. I'm not gonna speak on those yet. I'd rather wait till the issue comes out and talk about it. But man, I love that Tim is getting his day, and he's finally getting treated, I think, the way he deserves. And, we find out that he's not the only one in prison, that there are other people in here with him. And the 2 that we know for sure now are Doomsday and Tim Drake. Another Tim Drake. This Tim Drake is going all the way back to... And, I mean, man, this is getting deep. This was one of... Jeff Johns' Teen Titans run, where right before Infinite Crisis took place and 1 year later happened, the Teen Titans were fighting the Fatal Five, I believe, and got slung into the future, or they got slung into the future.
Oh, by Johnny Quick?
No, it wasn't Johnny Quick. Okay. This was way before that. This is before New 52. This was way back in... it was...
That was a hell of a story.
It was a great story. Yeah. This was...
but they were just flung into... like just a random skip of time in that story. So they kept showing up at different points in time and then going right back, and they had to do that eternally. Yeah. Until Tim figured out a way out.
Because Tim is a smart one. No, basically this story was Superboy and Wonder Girl are on a date, and Persuader, who is a Legion of Superheroes villain, like cuts through time and comes to attack them. Legion of Superheroes end up like taking them into the future to help them defeat what was the Fearsome Five, but now the Fearsome 500, because they've been going to other times and like pulling all of them together.
Yeah, like you do.
Yeah, like you do. Yeah. So basically, at the end of that story, they're going back in time, and something goes wrong, so they're thrown back in time from where they're at, but into our future, to the atypical kind of despot future, where all the main heroes are dead. The Justice League is dead. The Teen Titans have grown up to be the Justice League, but they're kind of an evil version.
Right.
Connor has become Superman, but he is, Paw is Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Beast Boy has gone feral, so he's just this monster. Raven has given into her dark side with Trigon, and Tim has become Batman, but he's become a Batman that kills. He uses the guns that Joe Chill used to kill the Waynes to use them. So
wow,
yeah, it's a very good story. I'll let you borrow it.
Please do. What's it called? Do you remember?
Titans of Tomorrow, I believe. It's volume 4 of the Jeff Johns run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've read it. I've read so much at this point. You start.
Sure, it kind of
together.
all makes sense. Yeah. And it was a really good story in and of itself, but basically the interaction with Tim and future Tim, basically our Tim was, I'm never going to be Batman, I don't want to be Batman, this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
And Tim's like, well, the crisis comes and you end up having to be him. And this was all, leading up to Infinite Crisis and what was going to happen there, but that Tim has resurfaced in New 50, or in Rebirth in this era, and he's a prisoner of Mr. Oz or whoever's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as of last issue, and I know the new issue is sitting beside us. I haven't read it yet. Maybe I should have done it before we talked about this. But basically, you've got two different Tims, and why is Mr. Oz taking Tim Drake's? What is it about Tim Drake that is so important? If there are two, is there a third? Is there a fourth? How many Tim Drakes does he have?
Yeah.
Are we going to see Batman Beyond Tim Drake?
But we know Tim Drake is very important to Oz.
Yes.
And he's got multiple of them.
Yeah. So
So why is that happening?
Exactly.
And is he as important as Nightwing? Which one thing I loved about Nightwing that you find out is he's talking to Superman of another universe at one point in the Nightwing story, and I think it's Superman that tells him that one thing that's cool about you is all of us are different in every universe, but you're the one.
You're the one constant.
Yeah, you're the one multi-dimensional constant. No matter what, Nightwing is always Dick Grayson, and Nightwing is always fighting for justice.
Yeah.
And man, that kind of got me. I was like, yeah, you're the only one that never changes to the left or the right. Because Flashpoint is how, Reverse Flash explains it, is everything shifted slightly to the left.
Yeah.
And to say, well, there's nothing to shift with Nightwing. That's why you never see, an alternate of Nightwing.
Yeah.
He's that pure, So it's really cool,
Yeah.
How they do that with some of the characters.
I like it. Yeah, and that was the Rebirth Superman, who at the time didn't really know this universe's Dick Grayson. And
all the stuff they've been doing with Superman has been a little convoluted and kind of hard to follow, because
they finally kind of fixed it in Superman, where it turned out, spoiler alert once again, that basically he had been not split in two per se, but almost his essence had been kind of splintered.
Really got comic books are weird though,
sure,
because at one point Superman shows back up and he's just Clark Kent.
Yes.
And he does not want to be Superman because the last thing he remembers, he had a big fight with Doomsday and they both died. Or something like that. And then another Superman comes that is from Superman Prime, and there's just a bunch of, there's 3, isn't there 3?
Well, there was New 52 Superman, which was kind of the brash younger Superman. There was this other Superman that had showed up that was from the pre-52, but maybe a different universe of pre-52. He was married, he had a kid, had a beard, and then there was Clark Kent that had shown up.
Yeah.
Now, Clark Kent really didn't show up until after New 52 Superman had died, and Prime Superman had kind of taken back over. That ended up being that Clark Kent was actually Mr. Mxyzptlk, who had turned himself into Clark and made himself forget who he was, because Mxyzptlk was also somebody that was trapped, and he was pissed off because
Who
Mr.
the crap
Ross.
is? I have no idea who Mxyzptlk is.
He's the fifth dimension imp, the little like floaty guy that just comes along and causes trouble.
Oh,
big head, little hat.
Okay, yeah.
He gets captured.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, Superman will come and get me. Superman, if I'm not there in a couple hours, Superman's gonna know something's wrong because I show up every so often. Just play with him and keep him in check. And then,
just a goof.
Yeah, and he never shows, and Mix gets really mad because he feels like Superman's forgot about him. So he, when he does finally break free, he goes after Superman, and I think it was that he was kind of responsible for the splitting, is what it seemed like. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was Mr. Oz. But at the end of it, basically, they were made, like, Superman and Lois, Clark and Lois, were made to forget that Jonathan was their son.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, at the end of the story, their essences all came back together. So that's why we got kind of the Rebirth Superman, who is just Superman.
Yeah.
He's not New 52, he's not pre-52, he's just Superman. They're basically just one character again. Their histories have like realigned.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of seeing the fallout of like what that means and what has happened with it. So, and you could tell by the change of the costume a little bit. So now, the New 52 Superman that was best friends with Dick in that comic. Yeah. And then the Superman that talked to him about how, from my time, me and you were best friends. Yeah. I hope we can get that way. Well, now it's the same, and that's part of all the timelines coming back together. Red Robin's history being rewritten. Right. All the things kind of realigning, and part of it was the whole Superman thing. So it's really. I applaud DC for what they're doing because this is a very ambitious project that they've undertook. Yeah. Storyline.
Because you have to read to understand it wholly, like 100%. You kind of have to read everything. Yeah. So like this is the first real event that because of it I've wanted to pick up things that I had never thought of picking up, like Wonder Woman or honestly Red Hood and the Outlaws. I didn't really dig the New 52 run.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know. I kind of like turned my nose up at like a real slutty Starfire and a Jason Todd that was like really really full of himself. But they didn't. I don't really feel like they did anything that kind of made me think like, oh, awesome. I mean, they had their own tropical island. Like I didn't really feel. There was moments that made me laugh, but nothing that really like tied me to any of it. But from what I've heard, for Rebirth, Red Hood is just killing it. Like he's just been doing some really awesome stuff, and he's like the breakout star of Rebirth.
I'm a couple issues behind on it, but what I've read, I really enjoyed. Yeah. It's kind of a. And the thing with Jason Todd, he's always kind of been that black sheep of the Bat family, and he's always kind of done things his own way. Mm-hmm. And this is a Red Hood that is not necessarily operating under Batman's jurisdiction, but is kind of going with Batman's blessing a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you see that this is a Red Hood that maybe wants a little bit better, and his relationship with Bizarro is pretty outstanding. Like I really like the dichotomy between the two, and almost this like a mice and men style thing. Right. Yeah. And it's been very good so far. So I'm really enjoying it.
And I'm loving the whole idea that at one point Jason finally after everything relents, and I don't know where it is, but I know there's a panel out there from a recent read that Jason's like, maybe Batman's right. Maybe killing people isn't the answer. And he kind of has to face himself, and that, I mean, what's more human than that, So
absolutely.
So, it's just really cool. Talking about Red Hood though, Red Robin. Mm-hmm. I got the squeakiest chair in the world. Sorry, you guys. And I move a lot when I sit. Even I'm just a busybody. So deal with my creaking. It's just my knees. I'm part robot, and I'm rusty. But fair enough. Rusty Venture. But, anyways, talking about Red Robin getting his up and comings is Terry McGinnis is back. Yes. In the Batman Beyond world, and I haven't really read. I mean, honestly, I feel like Batman Beyond has always been firing on all cylinders. I've always been a big fan of it. I got it. I got the very first issue or the very first trade because I always do the trades, you know. And you know, I got that, and you know they'll always do like 2 or 3 issues or 2 or 3 trades, and then it's done. And then like the fourth trade will usually be like a new writer, a new storyline, a new something. And I honestly like probably the weakest it ever got was Justice League Beyond. Like, because they tried to do, like, the whole Justice League.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, it was a little hokey, a little stupid. Like, it probably would have worked as a show, but, like, as a comic, I didn't really think it was that great. But it was still good, you know. And when they got to Future's End, that, you know, I thought that was going to be a Batman Beyond story, but Future's End was very not a Batman Beyond story. Like, Terry was in it, but wasn't a big part of it, and his whole future line, like that was the most tragic thing, and that was what kept me reading because I wanted to see more about that because they, you know, basic Brother Eye has taken over and he's like assimilating all the superheroes, even Superman and Wonder Woman, and I mean this is this horrific mechanical nightmare of a world.
Yeah.
You know, and then they finally find Bruce Wayne right before he sends Terry back in time, and you know, and then Terry's back in time and you don't know what the fate of Bruce Wayne is, and then later you find out that they go back to that timeline very briefly and show that they're keeping Bruce Wayne alive and Brother Eye isn't assimilating him, and then there's only one other person on the planet he hasn't assimilated, and that's Joker, and he stitches Joker to Batman and then assimilates them together, you know, but then it cuts back to like just showing Mr. Terrific and like Grifter Mr. Terrific trying to figure out what's going on with Brother Eye, because he's like kind of held captive, but no one knows it because he's Mr. Terrific, and Grifter hanging out on an island with Deathstroke and stuff like that. Like it's very like, oh my God, can we please do something? It's a lot of like walking, talking, and all that stuff. And then once in a while you'll see like it'll be like, Mr. Terrific, last night the company building was broken into, and he's like bring it up on the teleprompter, and it shows Terry McGinnis in the Batman Beyond suit, like kicking butt and like fighting, and then he's like, okay, I don't know if he thinks he's Batman or what, and like that's all you get for like the next couple issues.
Yeah.
So I fell out of it pretty quick. Like I kind of fell out of love with it. But the big finale of that, what I don't know how, but Terry McGinnis losing his life. You know, and not Terry, but Tim getting thrown into the future.
Yeah.
You know. And so when they said he was taken off the board, I thought that's what they were referring to. He was thrown into the future. But he was thrown into Brother Eye's future. You know, so it was up to Tim to fix all that. And then, like, he came back, and he was in the Batsuit and never left it.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, he couldn't... like, he wouldn't leave it because Matt McGinnis was there. And then, they do all this crazy stuff where, like, Matt ends up finding the Justice League, like, the essence of them, like, locked in... basically what's left of their humanity, like, locked in these hyperlock stasis pods. And he somehow gets a hold of Green Lantern's ring, and the ring chooses him. So now Matt is actually... the Green Lantern.
Well, that's cool.
For like a brief amount of time.
Yeah.
And but all the while, like, it's not until he becomes the Green Lantern that he realizes that Terry isn't in the suit, and I think he sees Batman Beyond like doing stuff, and he's like, why isn't he talking to me? And then when he first talks to him, he's like, you're not my brother. No, yeah. I know my brother. You're not him. Who the hell are you? Who's in that suit? And yeah, he like reveals himself to be Tim, and but yeah, then it's up to him, and he actually pulls it off. Like, it's this like real short, like very late victory, like fighting for a planet, but they finally destroy Brother Eye. Like they kind of do like a Star Wars thing where it's like the real Brother Eye has left the planet and created like a Death Star for himself, and he's just watching the planet like a satellite, you know, and Tim figures that out, and he's a genius, so he hacks it and destroys it, you know. But much later, Terry McGinnis has come back, I'll just skip ahead and say where we are now with Batman Beyond Rebirth. Terry McGinnis is back. He's in the suit. Oh, man, one thing I have to say about Tim Drake is the suit gets demolished, and at this point Batman is dead. And he was working under him and an old Dick Grayson, which is basically looks like Nick Fury, but the original, not Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury.
David Hasselhoff Nick Fury.
Yeah. So, and but they're both dead. Like everyone's dead, except for Commissioner Gordon, Barbara Gordon.
Yeah.
And she ends up, once the suit gets demolished, they need another suit to, for him to go forward. So she goes in there with him and says, "Oh, did you know they go to the Batcave, which, just an old decrepit museum of a Batcave." And they're like, "No, there's a Batcave within the Batcave." Because that's always a fun one that they like to do. Is it's like, "Oh, no, you thought this was the Batcave? No, this is the Batcave."
This is the entryway to the Batcave.
Yeah, so they open up this cave, and he's like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "I don't think in this day and age, I don't think Batman had a chance to build another Beyond suit." And he's like, "Okay, well, why don't we're just going to have to use the prototype." And it's the bunny suit.
Yes.
So, and then they basically say that the bunny suit, the whole purpose of that was just the prototype, and like the sleeker future model of that is the Batman Beyond suit. So it's this cool way of tying the present to the Batman Beyond universe, and that doesn't happen enough to like, because they always go like way into the future, so there's real no connection.
Yeah.
The only connection we really had up until then was the fact that that Batman was Batman until he got old, and then once he was old, he actually had to make a weapon that was much like a pistol, and then used it, and he decided that was the moment when he needed to go, because now he has to use weapon, doesn't choose to use weapons,
Yep.
And but no, in Batman Beyond Rebirth, I don't know if they were just if that all just got retconned, because it basically turns out that this guy, that the Joker's gang, is like, now they're fighting to get funding. They're robbing people.
Okay.
And Terry's like, Terry knows this is a very seasoned Terry.
Yeah.
So, and he knows the Jokers, and he's like, no, they just want to cause carnage. Why they're actually fighting for a cause now? Yeah. And at this point, the Jokers have like a certain area of town you just don't go to, like that's Jokerland,
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out that they really think that Joker's going to come back to life, and they don't know, and they need money to make this happen, and then it, then they talk about like the last fight between Batman and Joker, the last recorded fight was it was nuts. Batman won't kill the Joker, so the Joker tied Batman into a bulldozer, and Joker tied himself to the front of the bulldozer, and they were driving towards explosives. And Batman had to figure out how to stop all this, so neither one of them died, or get out before he could die.
Yeah.
And he could get out long enough to save himself, and that's what they say in the story is what happened, is that he got out and saved himself, and the Joker died.
Mm-hmm.
And then Batman got old, and all the normal stuff happened. But you find this guy that's calling himself Terminal, that's he was basically like a bully from Terry's high school.
Yeah.
And he kidnaps Max, and if you read Batman Beyond or like watch the show, you'll know who I'm talking about. But he kidnaps Max, and she's like a really smart with computers,
mm-hmm.
and he shows her that he has the Joker. Like he opens up, he turns on this light and says my name is Terminal, and they're giving me money so I can keep him alive. And you see Joker just on a stretcher, and he's basically just comatose in a coma.
Yeah.
Just a chemically induced coma, and they're just basically rebuilding him. And then, but like as the battle progresses, it turns out that he's not fighting to get him alive. He's fighting to keep him in the coma, mm-hmm. because the longer he can keep him in the coma and keep him like in a vegetated state, then he can keep getting funding, and he's basically just using the Jokers to get powerful enough to take over Wayne Powers. Because if you control that, you control everything. But what's really cool is, and this is kind of a spoiler, but like near the end of the book, like Terry fights his way up to where Terminal has the Joker's body, and he fights all the way up there, takes one look at what Terminal has, and he runs he was like, no, this can't be him. And Matt's with them at this point, and he's like, no, this can't be him. And he's like, what? No, this is him. This is what he has. And he was like, no, this isn't. He thinks it's the Joker, but this can't be him.
Yeah.
And so he just keeps saying that, like, this can't be him. And then he like checks his fingerprints, and then it turns out, and then Terminal says like, oh, did you really think I had the Joker? And it turns out he doesn't have the Joker, he has Bruce Wayne.
Dang.
So it's like this big, like, wow. But he's painted up like the Joker, and one thing he's keeping him under with is all of Joker's toxins.
Yeah.
So it's deformed his face, and so he looks like the Joker, but it's really Bruce Wayne, and he ends up saving him, but Terminal gets away. And then, like, they end it with this crazy thing, like Terminal gets away on this plane that Max it's this big crazy thing. Max shoots it with a missile, and it hits, but the plane goes down like way far away from Gotham, Neo Gotham or whatever it's called. And when it hits, Terminal always has this like this sidekick, this little henchman that's like, yes sir, kind of the Alfred to his evil deeds, and then they crash the plane. He's like, no, we're gonna raise from this, and I can't. They all still believe. They all think that he just saved the Joker, so it's gonna, he really saved Bruce Wayne, and now he's got the old man, so he can have him. We got bigger fish to fry, and he's like, and off camera, the henchman is like, I can't believe you thought that plan would work. And he was like, no, it was always gonna work. I got the funding, and he was like, no. You do not make fun of the Joker, and like hits him with a pipe, and then like pulls off his hat, and it turns out it's the Joker, and he's still alive.
Jeez.
So now we have like the Batman of old and the Joker of old both alive. Where in the Batman Beyond movie, Return of the Joker, it turned out that it was just Tim Drake with Joker's last laugh. Like the little computer chip on his neck that turned him into the persona. Mm-hmm. But this is the real life Joker, and like that's where we're at now. Is like now all the like the biggest players in Gotham that ever were are alive.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's just to tell you that like, but read that book. You got to read it. It's really cool.
I will. I absolutely will. That sounds fantastic.
So I mean, it's an amazing read. There's some stuff I didn't give away because I didn't want to,
Appreciate that.
But I mean, like the big ones that are like kind of obvious, because I mean, once you see Joker, you're like, Joker's freaking ripped.
Yeah.
So I was like, and you're just looking at him, and you're like, I don't think that's Joker. Like when it shows him full on, if you look at it for long enough, you don't think it's Joker yourself.
Yeah.
So, but but yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff, and but the coolest thing they're doing right now. And I don't think we have enough stuff to do any spoilers on because there's not enough out, is the Button.
Yeah. Dude, the Button was amazing.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, we got some big stuff that came out of the Button. Basically, you might be asking yourself, Chris, Cody, what is the Button? Well,
take it away, sir.
Button stems back to Rebirth, but really goes all the way back to Watchmen. The Button is the button that the comedian wore in Watchmen that Rorschach finds after he is killed. It's a little happy face button with a little drop of comedian's blood. So somehow, when the DC Rebirth special hit and Wally makes his way back, he goes to numerous people to try to like find a connection to them, like a lightning rod, to come back. And
Yeah, because they have to remember him.
yes.
Because if he just shows up, they'll be like, "Oh, a ghost."
Ooh.
But if they can say his name and remember him, that makes him feasible, and that makes him part of that universe.
Yeah, that basically gives them a connection, and that's how he comes back when it's Barry that does it. But he goes to the Batcave and Batman, and basically like the lightning from him being there like strikes the wall of the cave and reveals the button.
Mm-hmm.
So this happens, and then months have passed, stories, all kinds of stuff have happened, and really nothing has come of the button. It's just been there, and you see it from time to time. You can tell that Bruce is trying to figure out what it is, what it does. He's run all kinds of tests on it. The blood, they can't find a match for whose it could be, what it's from, where the button could come from, the makeup of it and everything, until basically he is basically the story of the first run of Batman, Gotham and Gotham Girl. All this stuff happens. Long story short, Psycho Pirate, who was a very big part of Crisis on Infinite Earth and Infinite Crisis, shows up and Psycho Pirate has the Medusa mask, which basically allows him to control people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Batman gets the Medusa mask because he has to use it for reasons I won't give away, but he has it, and he basically sets it down on this desk next to the button, and it causes a reaction. That reaction basically calls Reverse Flash in, and Reverse Flash, this is the Reverse Flash from pre-52, Flashpoint.
Yeah.
Reverse Flash, one that remembers Flashpoint and how Batman killed him.
Yeah, and let's just stop and say, if you listen to our previous episode, Reverse Flash is the time paradox that, like, no matter how you kill him, he was born in the future, so he's always able to come back.
Yeah.
His history is always there, so he's the paradox, the living paradox.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, Reverse Flash shows up and just beats the piss out of Batman.
Oh my god, that whole, like, he talks to Barry, and Barry says, "I'll be there in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it counts down from 30, and Reverse Flash is, like, beating him to death.
Yeah. And it's cool because he actually, Batman gets a good one on him. He freaking jams a batarang through his foot. And,
yeah, he's like, I can act faster than you can think.
Yeah.
And he's like, not if you're held down at a certain point. And he's like, what is that supposed to mean? And stabs him through the foot and holds him down.
He's like, you might vibrate so I can't hit you, but some part of you has to be connected to here now. And he just wham through the foot, which just gets the piss beat out of him. And then
he nearly gets beaten to death.
Yeah, he's in pretty bad shape, and Reverse Flash basically follows the vibration, the energy signature of the button to see where it goes. And
because the thing is like he's ran the blood and he's ran the material on the button, and nothing coincides with anything in the multiverse.
Yeah.
In the multiverse, not just in Gotham or just the world. There's nothing like it in this existence or any existence that Batman is aware of.
Yep. So when Reverse Flash goes to see, he's gone and then instantly back, and he's basically like half of his body's gone.
Yeah,
he's
it's
just
burned up. And
yeah, he's like
a skeleton. Skeleton.
He's a skeleton.
He's a skeleton. He's just a skeleton and muscle.
Yeah,
and it's just smoking, and he's just cooked all on. It looks like someone just hit him with the sun.
Yeah.
And all he says.
Yeah. Is I saw God.
I saw God.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then, when then Barry shows up and Batman's half dead, Reverse Flash is completely dead, and what is going on? So it's really cool that we get to see Barry's kind of forensic.
Yeah, he sets up a crime scene.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was wonderful.
And it's like, oh God, I know it sent a shiver down your spine when you read this part too, because it did with me.
Mm-hmm.
Is he was like, what I love is in the Justice League we get to talk about how we're going to fight and who we're going to fight, but Bruce Wayne is the only man that I've ever met that I can actually talk shop with.
Yeah.
And and they start talking forensics, and he's like, so it's like he's the only one that speaks English. You know? So it's like, oh my God, like that right there almost brought a tear to my eye. Just Just in, so I had to mean something
it was
to you.
amazing.
You know, he's like, oh God, it's someone I can actually talk shop with. You're like,
yes, I love it. And it was so great just to like, just this rapport that they have, and it's not really like you don't really think of Batman and Flash like being pals and going getting a beer, but like
But the greatest forensic minds.
Yeah.
You know,
can solve anything, and it's just amazing to see them like come together for this, and then they're just building the case to like what happened to Reverse Flash, like trying to figure it out. And one of the best parts of this, and this kind of skips forward just a little bit, is we get Jay Garrick back, like basically like
for a split second.
Yeah, we see Jay, and that, I mean, that just opens the door for the entire Justice Society to come back. And then it just asks the giant question, where are they?
Yeah.
You know, there's no Alan Scott, there's no Ted Grant, there's no, you know, where's the Justice Society? Where's the legacy? And that was one of the things that they talked about that was taken, you know, whoever stole the time in Rebirth, they took our legacies.
Yeah.
And that was, I know that was one of the biggest complaints with New 52 was that they tried to modernize everything and kind of make
Streamline
this the beginning. That there was no Justice Society. There was no history.
No 70
with
years,
Yeah, and that was obviously still there, and now we have Jay back to some degree. And
even that part, he's like, oh, thanks for helping us. And he like keeps calling to him. He's like, Barry, just keep going forward. Just keep, because they put together the
Cosmic Treadmill.
Yeah, the Cosmic Treadmill. But they say like, no, we're not going to use the Cosmic Treadmill.
Yeah.
You know, because the last time I did that, I ran into the Speed Force and I died. You know.
Yeah.
And then they start running through time, and he breaks it down for Batman. And Batman just like ties a rope to him.
Yeah.
You know, like literally just Batman, the guy who's got a gadget for everything. All he's got is a rope. He just ties around the Flash, and he's like, dude, he's like, Batman, you cannot handle this. Not because, you know, you're weak-minded, you're a man's man, but you're not tuned to the Speed Force. Like, you cannot handle this.
Yeah.
Not even, you cannot handle this, okay? There's no amount of, like, training you can do.
Yeah.
It's just some people do, some people don't. And he's just like, Barry, we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
He's like, and another fine sign of Batman, he's like, you think, like, I know I can't handle it, but this is all we got.
Yeah.
I have to handle it, you know?
I don't have a choice. We got to do this.
Yeah, and just ties a rope to him, and he's like, go. And they hit the Cosmic Treadmill, man, and they go flying in, and they run into Reverse Flash, but it's like as he's going to his demise.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
they're trying to stop him, like, don't go, you're going to die. And he's like, I'm Reverse Flash. I'll see you in hell, Barry.
Yeah.
And then when they get where they're going, they are in the Flashpoint universe.
Oh my God, that's I was just like, hold on, I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah.
Because they get there and he's like, this looks like the cave.
Yeah.
When I first started being Batman.
Yeah. And
Barry's like, oh my, okay.
I know this.
He's like, I know this, Bruce.
Yeah.
You've got to listen to me.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? No. And then he's like, that's the gun. I never recovered the gun.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I did when you and your mom died. And turns around, and there's freaking Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, Thomas Wayne, Flashpoint, Batman. Oh my gosh.
So the first time we ever get to see, like, Batman and Thomas Wayne, like...
Yeah.
Well, in my reading history, you know, like, them meeting face-to-face as...
Batman and Batman.
Batman and Batman.
Yeah. And it was freaking amazing. Because they just, I mean, them fighting together.
Fighting his father and son.
Yeah, and then putting the, him putting the cowl on. And then even Thomas has got the pistols. And, Bruce knocks one out of his hand with batarangs.
He's like, that's not how we do this.
Yeah, we don't do that. And just, so amazing. But
and
then
he grabs Barry and he's like, you told me you would not let him ever come here. He says something to that extent. He's like, you said you would take care of him. You said this existence was the perverted existence, and it wouldn't exist anymore. It's still here.
Yeah, and it, I mean, at the beginning of that issue, you get the story, he's like, this was supposed to be over. This was supposed to end when I got Barry back his powers and he went back. He was supposed to fix all this, but it didn't.
It's continued.
Aquaman and Wonder Woman have now joined forces.
And they're
I'm
coming
their target.
Here. They're coming here to destroy me.
Yeah, and then you find out, which is another thing, like, we don't know who it is, we don't know who's pulling the strings, but whoever it is has kept this time together. This time should have ceased to exist, but they have somehow, like, picked it up and just, like, put it on a shelf and just, like, let it keep going.
Set it in its own moment. Yeah.
Just to screw with Batman.
Yeah.
Like, Batman comes, they fight, they save the day. Bruce and Thomas get to have this wonderful moment where Thomas says, "Stop being Batman. Like, don't be Batman. Be a father.
Like, be a father. Yeah. You have a son. Don't be Batman anymore."
And then they leave, and then it ceases to exist. So what? You know, I mean, it was a great story, but what was the point? Like, I want to know what the payoff's going to be. Like, who did that, and why did they do that? Did they do that just to get in Batman's head?
You saw at the end. This will be a spoiler for that whole thing. Is at the end it shows the bat signal up there and Batman looking at it, and then like lowering his head, like hanging his head, and Alfred asking him if he's going to answer it, and him deciding not to answer it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I took from it, is he's actually gotten in Batman's head. He stopped all of that they thought they were doing was just basically just part of the plan to get Batman to cease to be Batman, because he was actually onto something. But that's one of the parts that I absolutely like. That damn near brought me to tears. A comic book almost bringing me to tears. That hadn't happened since the first time I read Identity Crisis.
Ooh, yeah.
And you know, like I'm sitting here. Well, aside from Sam's story, like that's the closest. Yeah. So. And Sam's story is a story for another time. Maybe I'll talk about that on my new show.
Your new show? What's your new show called?
Yeah, I have this new show called Everyone Has Cancer. It's my personal fight and struggle and my story of how I got through things. I don't have the tools that you need, but I know you have a story that needs to be told, and I know my story. If I get you enthusiastic about telling your story, then that's all I want to do. But I don't even know why I just pitched that. But yeah, same story as I'll talk about that on Everyone Has Cancer. But yeah, at the end of that, it shows the button floating through space, you know, and then slowly it zooms into the button, and then when it zooms out, it's the Superman emblem.
Yeah.
Suggesting that we are more than likely going to get Superman versus Dr. Manhattan.
That would be what it seems like it's like pointing at.
Yeah.
And now we have Doomsday Clock, which comes out next month.
Right.
And that's the next big step in what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And we will definitely be doing an episode about that, talking about what's going on with it, because I'm incredibly excited to see what happens next.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I want to know, where does Tim fit into this? Where does Superman fit into this? Where does Batman fit into it? Like, why was this taken? Who took it? What was the purpose of them taking it?
Yeah.
Why was the Justice Society wiped off the map? Why, you know, is Batman Beyond Tim Drake one of Mr. Roz's prisoners? Because, I mean, at the end of his run, he just disappears.
Yeah, he's just gone.
Bloop.
Like, that's the thing, is Terry's just back, and it doesn't really explain what happened to Tim Drake.
I believe, Tim's just walking off into the sunset and just disappears.
Yeah.
And is that where he's at?
Mm-hmm.
Who else could be there? Why does he want to stop these people? What does he want to stop them from doing? Like, what is the goal? You know, what do the Watchmen have to do with all this?
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like we have gotten a ton of answers, but every answer we get just leaves me with 3 or 4 more questions.
Oh yeah.
So it's
like
wonderful.
the whole story of the button so far is like 4 issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's basically like all it makes you want to do is pick up the next one, and pick up the next one, and pick up the next one. And where we're at now is kind of like in Metal, how we have a Batman that has done everything that he believes was right, and he was still wrong.
Yeah.
And now we're getting a Batman that, like, for the first time ever, is questioning whether he wants to be Batman.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe the spirit and the passion of Batman has been taken from him. You know? So, yeah, where we're going with it and where it's already gone is heavy. You know? It's just some crazy stuff. And we still haven't even seen a full-on Dr. Manhattan. You know, we see one thing with that is we see Reverse Flash finally get to where he's going, and he screams for this power to reveal itself, and then when it does, he screams for it to stop.
Yeah.
And he tries to run, and that's why he came back all burnt up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because all it did was reveal itself.
Yeah. And I mean, you see the blue glow, which would lead you to believe that is Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
But what if it's not? What if that's a red herring? You know, what if it's more than that? What if it's less than that? I don't know. And I'm very curious to see where we go with all this.
Oh yeah.
And I'm very excited for the ride. And you know, will all this tie into Metal in some way? Because I mean, Metal is this huge event that's going on right now that has to have like lasting effects. Because I mean, this
Absolutely.
is and Metal. We'll get into this on another episode because I could talk about Metal for another 3 hours because it's just that.
Because Metal's getting pretty deep cuts, like
Yeah.
hardcore deep cuts.
Yeah, Metal is taking stuff from all the way back in. I mean, pre-52 stuff. Like it's back in Final Crisis stuff happening. So
That's one thing in the button at one point to get. I think it's in the button where they have to go get a certain piece for the cosmic treadmill, and they go to like this big artifact chamber.
yeah, and you see all this stuff in there.
Yeah.
You see all these different things.
And the only way you're going to be able to name like 2 things out of that room is if you've been reading since back in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is like deep cuts.
I'm going to be honest, I'd have to relook at it because I don't remember anything's in there, but I know
Yeah.
that there were a couple I was like, oh, that's this, and there were
Yeah.
some I was like, I have no idea what the hell that is.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up to see what it was. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to see all these artifacts and their importance, and you know, I want to know what Metal brings to this story, what this story brings to Metal, like where we're going, and you know, what happens when it's all over. Like what is the status quo of the DC universe look like after all this stuff comes out?
Right.
You know, do we have a brand new universe? Do we have, you know, a return to the original universe? Do we have what we've got now? Do we go back to New 52? Like, what do we have once this all comes out? And I'm very excited. DC's done some wonderful stuff.
Oh yeah.
So.
It's huge. Like it's just there's a lot to think about, and I mean there's just a lot to read, and like I said, you kind of have to get all the pieces to understand all of it, and that's the only like drawback is that that's a lot to collect.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, hopefully they'll do like a big.
They'll do a big omnibus that kind of does everything.
Yeah.
And hey, if you've listened this much to the podcast and you're still listening to it and you have questions, reach out to us, man. Reach us on our Facebook page, and I'll explain to you as much as I can. And if I don't have an answer, I can find that answer for you.
And Chris only found those answers because he's been reading, so definitely, get in some good with some comic books. I mean, there's, especially around this time of year, no matter where you go, you're going to find some good deals,
Mm-hmm.
So this is my favorite time of year to buy comic books because there's a lot of buy two going frees out there. And
yeah. I just I don't know. It's kind of turning into fall. Weather's getting cool. Like there's nothing better than just like sitting down with a stack of comics and just reading away.
Yeah.
So
just turn on some music and go.
Yeah, that's a great way to spend a night. But man, it's really. I mean, I think those are the big broad strokes, man. I mean,
we're right at an hour, so.
Wow, it's only been an hour? I really thought it has been way longer than that.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
No, it's an hour, like 4 minutes.
Wow.
So.
Well, hey, it's not a 2-hour podcast. That's kind of a red letter day for us. But what do you guys think, man? Where do you think this is going? What do you want to see happen?
Yeah.
Who else does Mr. Oz have in that prison? Who else are we going to see? Are we going to see Tim Drake, Batman Beyond? Are we going to see Connor Kent? Are we going to see any of the other Justice Society? Are we going to see, I don't know, Ralph Dibny, Sue Dibny? Are we going to see any of these characters that we haven't seen in a while? I want to know what you guys think. So
yeah.
There are comment sections below where this video is. And you could write comments in there. And then we will read the comments. And cry if they're bad and cry if they're good. And just cry if there are none. So crying will happen.
But yeah, you can always check us out at facebook.com/CourtOfCowls. Make sure to check out our other videos where if they haven't gone up by the time we get this one up, we got the debut episode of The Mighty Mic Drop. We got another episode of The Chris Chronicles, and we got another episode of my show, Codebreaker.
True story.
So yeah. I'm thank you for being there for every time my brain takes a dump.
That's all right. That's what
and
I'm
I
here
forget
for.
names of my own stuff. And you know, I got my own podcast now where I'm talking about everyone has cancer, and you might think, what? I have cancer, but no, probably don't. But I'll tell you what you do have is a story, and I'd love to have you come over and listen to it and see if it pulls you in, if it inspires you to do great things, because that's really what it's about. But yeah, this has been a fun little exercise as the tag team.
Yeah, it has. And but before we sign this off, I want to follow up on that. I've known Cody for quite a while now, and go give his show a listen. Like this guy, he's been through some stuff, and I've never met a man with a better attitude on life than this guy. He has this uncanny ability to make you feel good about what you've done and to lift you up. And I personally think that his story is a fantastic story, and we all have that journey. And I think if you listen to it, I think you'll get something out of it. So he's a good guy, and I'm really happy for what he's doing. So
thank you, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. So on that note, I think it's time for us to ride off into the sunset.
I think so as well.
Yep.
And hopefully next time we're gonna have some more of Rebirth stuff to talk about. But next time we got a special Halloween segment where we are gonna talk about all things Stephen King, baby. Yeah.
Get ready to hear a lot of my voice, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's gonna be 2 hours of Maximum Overdrive.
Yes. We're gonna talk about Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, sir.
We probably will talk a little bit about it.
Oh yeah, we have to. That was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Not really Halloweeny, but Stephen King and just amazing. So.
But yeah, until then,
I have been and shall always be Chris.
I have been and shall always be just Cody.
Just Cody.
Just Cody.
Yep.
Yeah,
No gimmick
buddy.
needed, just
no
Cody.
gimmick needed. I'm just Cody, and that's good enough for me, and I accept myself.
Sweet. All right.
So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. But for now,
keep the red phone ringing.
court is adjourned.